Now, what is the deeper reason why your singing just don't improve? Now, before you continue watching this video, I want to be straight up to you that this is not another video that I'm going to teach you some interesting technique or telling you how to access your high placement. It is not one of those videos. In this video, we are going really deep into some psychological reasons. So if you like shallow, then click away now. Alright, if you stayed, then let's get into the good stuff now. By the end of this video, you'll realize that most of the time when we're struggling singers when you want to learn how to sing better, we're learning vocal techniques, you realize that most of the time the reason why those vocal techniques don't work for you is almost always due to this reason. And through teaching different clients, especially those who really struggled with singing, I noticed this commonality, and today I'm going to share it with you. If this is your first time watching my video, it's JJ here, and I help singers like you unlock your high notes fast by showing you how you can access your high complete mixed voice vocal placement. And if that sounds like you, go ahead, hit the subscribe button down below and let's get started. So you see, a lot of the times when singers, they have trouble singing high notes, they will try to learn some vocal technique from the teacher, regardless whether it's the forward placement, the support, the larynx position, whatever the hell it is, they will try to learn some vocal technique. But there's an underlying assumption behind learning all those vocal technique, and that is that the singer's mind is absolutely healthy and it has no inhibitions. What do I mean? See, a lot of the times, struggling singers, they struggle with high notes simply because of two reasons. Number one, physically, their vocal cords, their high placement muscles, guess what? It is weak as fuck. But why is it weak as fuck? It is usually due to the inhibitions that society has placed on them mentally. Let me give you an example. Do you remember how in schools, especially if you're an introvert, or if you're not someone who's really expressive with what you're doing, what happens is, if you raise your voice in the class, if you're talking to, if you're a friend, I don't know, Mike or Jason or I don't know, Lisa, when you are talking, and then afterwards you're excited and you raise your voice a bit, your pitch gets a bit higher, and guess what? The teacher will come over to you and say,
"Hey, you, JJ, you, use your indoor voice. Shh."
Sounds familiar? Now guess what? Every time when a teacher does that to you, every time your parents does that to you, every time people around you, the society does that to you, it puts an inhibition here and here. More importantly here, because now you're led to believe that being loud, expressing yourself, it's a bad thing, right? Because teacher is going to punish me, my parents are going to punish me, people around me are going to punish me if I speak loudly, if I talk loudly. Now guess what? First of all, at a mental level, it creates the inhibition. So that later on, if you try to sing in your life, guess what? The mental inhibition will just always be there. You will think that you have to sing softer. In fact, it will change the way you appreciate things as well. Because guess what? Most likely, you will try to sing in falsetto, in head voice, in something light. Because you don't realize that the inhibition that is placed on you years ago, it is still programming you up there. Comment down below if you can relate to exactly what I'm saying here. The mental inhibition is the root cause, but ultimately the result, the bad result that it results in, is that you have a pair of vocal cords that is inefficient as fuck, simply because you don't use it. Because guess what? When you're talking softer, eventually from talking softer, it will translate to not talking.
Stop talking. Right, you're too noisy. Stop talking. You should be studying, you should be listening. Right? You have 2 ears and you have 1 mouth. Why do you think God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth? It's because you can listen more, you can talk less.
All this kind of understanding and inhibitions that society puts upon us, it makes us eventually not use our voice much. And if you have always been a loner or introvert, then guess what? Because you don't interact with a lot of people, you don't talk to a lot of people, guess what? Your vocal cords, they are muscle. If you don't use your bicep, you don't use your thighs, you don't use your abs, guess what? They are going to atrophy. they're gonna get weaker day by day until they reach a certain level that they can't go weaker than, if else you can't walk around, you know what I mean? It's the same thing for your vocal cords. If you don't use them, guess what's gonna happen? They are gonna get weak. They are gonna get weak. They're just muscles. They're no different from any other muscles you have. They're all muscles. If you don't use your muscles, they are gonna get weaker. Most of us, because of the conditioning since we had since young, guess what? For the whole part of our teenage years, even up to 10-20 years, we don't really use here. And especially if you are doing a job that doesn't require you to interact with other people, guess what? You're going to be sitting in front of a laptop all day long, not interacting, not talking with anyone. On the other hand, this is also why a lot of actors, they're naturally born talented singers. Do you know that a lot of actors, they can sing fucking well?
Oh, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
Why is that the case? A lot of actors, they didn't learn how to sing, but guess what? From young, they have been very, very expressive people, and that's how they can eventually become an actor. And when they are actor, when they express anger, when they express sorrowness, when they express happiness, guess what? The pitch have to increase. When the pitch increase and the volume increase, they are literally like speaking loudly. They are speaking on A's, on G's, on even B's and some high C's. Do you know that the average actor, when they get angry, when they get happy, they can go up to G4, G4 sharp, A4, B4, even up to C5. Like they're just talking.
Because I set it up! Because I know who you are!
It's like they're not even singing, they are just acting, they're just expressing their emotions. But when they're angry, when there's no inhibition, because they're actors, they use their voice so often, so frequently, that they have no problem singing at all, because it is built strongly since young. And guess what? When you have a stronger pair of vocal cords, it allows you to access your high placement, your high complete mixed voice vocal placement easier as well, and they both complement each other to help you develop your voice. And as a result of all this inhibition, what naturally happens to most struggling singers, including myself years ago, is that we lost the ability to activate our vocal cords, to really use it to its fullest potential. Here's what I mean. So a lot of the times, I'll get students to copy what I'm doing. So for example, can you just let it all out? Most students, because of our inhibition, they'll be like They don't even dare to become loud. If you can't even copy, or if you can't even try to do what I'm telling you to do, like sometimes I can just be like, forget about placement. I don't care if it's a low placement, high placement. Forget about everything. You have learned nothing. Just shout. Just shout. Guess what? Most of them, especially the struggling one, they can't even do that. Whatever I just did is a very primitive thing. Maybe in the past, in a caveman, when you saw danger, you'll do that. When you're excited, when you're angry, you'll do whatever I just did. But they have lost the power to do that. Why is that the case? It all starts up here. Because of inhibitions that you have put yourself upon here. And even if eventually from a mental state, okay, this is cleared. Okay, mentally you've taken away the inhibitions. Guess what? It's too weak here. Then we have to do some exercises to get it back first, before you can even get a kind of primitive, loud sound. Does that make sense? And that's when things like the head voice training comes into handy, and also stages 3 of the complete mixed voice vocal methodology. Now it's very obvious why those students they can't do it. Mentally, they're afraid of their voice breaking, because they associate the voice breaking as a very embarrassing thing. Like for most of us, we can all agree, for most singers, the last thing, the most dangerous, the thing that you fear the most is your voice breaking, especially on the stage. Because guess what? Even a lot of students, just with me, just them and me, just the two of us, they're still afraid of their voice breaking.
I'm not afraid.
In my mind, I'm thinking that you are paying me so that you can break your voice 1,000 times and I won't judge, and I can help you improve from what you have so far, and yet they are afraid to just let it out. And if you're afraid to let it out when you're just with me, well, then what's gonna happen if you're gonna perform in front of friends, in front on the stage? What is gonna happen then? And it's really funny how in sports like basketball, if you're shooting the hoop, and you miss a lot of the times, it's perfectly normal. It is nothing embarrassing, right? But guess what? Maybe it's embarrassing during a game, during an actual match. But if you're practicing, it's not embarrassing. But guess what? For singers, we have this idea that even if I'm practicing, I'm afraid to let my voice break, which doesn't make sense. Because if you're playing basketball, you're okay with missing as many shots as long as afterwards you can get into a hoop eventually during practice. Isn't that a case here? So why can't we apply the same mentality to singing? And tying back to whatever I said earlier, when the teacher tells us to use our indoor voice, when we learn to be quiet, in the process you have learned how to inhibit your voice as well. And when you do that, you have inhibited your personality and you as a person. Because guess what is the best way to express yourself? I can only think of 3 ways. Number 1, your facial expression. Number 2, your body language. Number 3, your voice. This is how actors express. Actors, they have their facial expressions, their voice, and their body language. Those 3 things. And the voice, it plays a huge factor in a direct communication. Well, of course, the facial expression and body language is a sub-communication. The voice itself is a direct communication. And if you can't express yourself with your voice, there's a very good chance that you have inhibited your own personality and you're not being your true self, because you're afraid to use this badass here to express what you want to express, whether is it a song, is it happiness, sadness, anger, whatever. So I guess the point I'm really trying to drive home here is that if right now you are a parent and you're watching this, I want you to know that you have to stop inhibiting your children or putting your children in a state where they are being inhibited, especially if you do want them to become singers. Because guess what? No famous great singers, they ever say, oh, my parents hate it when I sing and they don't allow me to sing, they discourage me from singing. Because guess what? The best singers in the world is either their parents are very encouraged and supportive of what they are doing, they grew up in an environment when they are being supported and cheered on, or either that or their entire family are singers. And of course, they'll be cheered on and motivated. If you're parents and you're watching this and you want your kid to be a singer, don't inhibit them. Even if you don't want them to be a singer, you want them to grow up healthily, mental health, to give them a great mental health and everything. You have to allow them to express their emotions and not repress everything. Does that make sense? Now, if you're a grown up now and you want to learn how to sing, the message for you is this: you have to start letting go of those inhibitions. A lot of the times, when struggling singers, even when I first began, what's interesting is I realized that vocal lessons are not actually vocal lessons for a lot of struggling singers. They are more like rehabilitative lessons. Sometimes rehabilitation for the voice, sometimes rehabilitation for the mind. That's why I have certain sessions where the first lesson, I talk to the student more to open him or her up. I do that more than the actual singing, because without removing the mental inhibition, the lock on here will always be there. Once you can remove the mental lock, at least we can start peeling off here and strengthening here. But if the lock up there is just there, then no matter what you do, you're not gonna unlock it here, because your mind controls your voice, not the other way around. You need to start telling yourself that voice breaking is a very normal thing. In fact, like, if you want to take it to the extreme, so what do I mean? You have to learn how to get out of your comfort zone. So for example, a really good way, don't do that, but you can do it if you really want to get it, is to sing something that you know it's impossible to sing in front of all your friends. So that means being comfortable with your voice breaking in front of friends, being comfortable with your voice breaking in front of other people where there's not much consequences. I don't mean like just go up to a stage and sing and perform and let your voice break. I don't mean that. I mean like in less low consequence environments, go ahead and purposely allow your voice to break so that you are inviting the break. You're inviting the embarrassment. And once you're mentally strong enough to do that, guess what? Now we are practicing when your voice breaks, nothing, it's fine. Because guess what? If your voice don't break, you'll not improve. Especially as the struggling singers. If you are born talented, maybe your voice don't have to break much in order for you to sing well. Because when you're young, your voice is naturally high. It's hard for your voice to break. But if you are already a grown up, you're a teenager right now, you've gone through puberty, your voice is gonna break. My voice broke like a fucking 1,000 times before I can allow it to stabilize more. Because with the voice breaking, it's the process of accessing your high placement. You're gonna have a lot of voice breaks. And you have to embrace it and love it and fall in love with it. And only when you do, you will realize that suddenly, when you can let go of that mental inhibition, you'll be able to improve so much faster. Because until I could let go of my mental inhibition back then, I could never ever sing past a D4, a C4. It's that bad. But when I can just let go of it and follow what my coach teach me, because guess what, in the past I had the same situation. My coach was trying to get me to do something, but I just couldn't do it because there was so much baggage up here. Only when I learned to let go of it did I see true improvement in my singing. So the whole message here is, I can teach you the high placement all day long, and I can teach you how to access it all day long. But as long as you don't remove that mental lock you have up there, as long as you are just afraid of making mistakes, afraid of your voice breaking, straining, you're afraid of all that, I get you to go, you're gonna go, At least try, even if your voice breaks, I don't care. It is part of a process. Do you understand what I'm saying here? So, the main message of this video is this. Stop getting to your head and get the fuck out of your head. And you will see tremendous improvements in your singing. Until you can get this part out of the way, no amount of actual technical vocal lessons is going to help you. Because guess what? However you want to access a high placement and however you want to control your vocal cords, it all determined by your brain, by what's up here. So the deeper reason why your singing don't improve, most of the time, it is not something as concrete and as obvious as a technique problem. And soon you'll realize that once you have taken away this mental resistance, this mental garbage if you will, you will also realize that the technique part is actually a lot easier than you think it is. The technique is only difficult because up here, you have so much garbage going on there. Does that make sense? So stop getting to your head and start getting comfortable with your voice breaking, with being loud and not held back. And then when you can just let go of all inhibitions, that's when technical lessons, accessing your high placement, learning how to compress with your vocal cords, that is when all these things, which is what I cover in all my other videos, those videos will make sense to you. You can actually apply what I've taught you in my other videos. Hey, I hope this video really shines a light on a deeper problem that a lot of you struggling singers might have, because I personally, that was me back then. I've gone through this journey and I just want to share with you how it feels like. And I hope that you can, whatever I'm saying is relatable to you, because like I've said, I've gone through a journey. And if you do like this video, go ahead, hit the thumbs up button below and share this video with a friend or family member who you think needs to watch this. And I'll see you in another video.